Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, a little bit of college football fans, a lot of IndyCar fans, Indianapolis 500 fans. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show, featuring usually Clay Hall, but look who's over there again, ladies and gentlemen. What do I call you? Double decker with double D?
Something with a double D moniker.
Double danger with double down with double D.
Double everything.
Yeah, we can throw all kinds of things in
there.
When you say two things, when you make 2 points, we'll call that a double decker from Double D.
Boom.
Dillon Davis, ladies and gentlemen, of DellGazette.com, the Delaware Gazette, covers Ohio State football, Ohio State basketball, local sports ad nauseum. But he's agreed to come in with me on this. I guess this is a holiday weekend, but in our jobs, you rarely get a holiday.
Yeah.
Even as long as I've been in, and I'm semi-retired now, but I still have a hard time taking holidays off. How about you, Dillon?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I don't have a hard time taking them off, but there aren't a lot of them that come around. That's for sure. So
yeah, exactly. But that's right. When you have a chance for a holiday off, you do take it. Yeah. That's double speak with double D. But the bottom line is, Dillon Davis, welcome back again. Before we get into a little bit of our preview and a retrospective too, on the Indianapolis 500. The retrospective would be on the 1986 dramatic victory by Bobby Rahal. His owner, Jim Trueman, was sitting in the pits, dying of cancer, would pass away 11 days later after that win and stuff. But they were headquartered in Hilliard, Ohio, or as the late, great Jim Trueman used to say, he was from Amlin, Ohio, which is right up the road, a little crossroads there. You've been through it. You live right down the road.
Yeah, Golf Club of Dublin's just 20 seconds down the road.
You live over there off Cosgrave. You know exactly where I'm talking about.
Exactly.
But he called that his home address, Amlin, Ohio. Yeah. I'll get to a little dramatic scene with him about that later on if I remember. But the bottom line is, what a win! Bobby Rahal's first and only victory in the Indianapolis 500. It came at an incredible time, but he went on to win that year's season championship, and then the next year's season championship in what is known as IndyCar now. And then he won another one in 1992 in his first year as the owner of a team. But it was really the victory that put a lot of things in motion for a lot of people, and basically gave a great bouquet to Jim Trueman at exactly the right time in his life when he could have used one. And I'll never forget him taking that long swig of milk in the victory circle, because you know what? Among other things, he was just flat thirsty.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
It was a hot day. The race had been delayed for 6 days previous because of a rainstorm that moved into town on late Saturday night and stuck around for a couple of days. We'll see if, in fact, it affects this year's race. There's a big rain expected on Sunday over there. A lot of times the weatherman is wrong. A lot of times, for some reason or another, the rain bypasses Indianapolis, goes right into the pits. Yeah. But the bottom line is, Columbus, Ohio, has got a major interest in this race from two reasons. Number one, Mike Shank's race team located in Pataskala. Yeah. They won several years ago with Helio Castroneves, helped him get his record-tying fourth victory in that race. He's in the race again this year in a one-off deal. He's now a co-owner, by the way, of that team. But Mike Shank of Meyer Shank Racing, the founder of that team, they've got 3 cars in it, including Felix Rosenquist, who's going to roll off number 4 on the starting grid, and Marcus Armstrong, who's going off, I can't remember, I think it's 11th or 13th. But anyway, all 3 of those cars are in position to maybe make some noise in this race. And of course, Graham Rahal, who calls Columbus, Ohio, his hometown. New Albany officially, actually he was born, I think, University Hospitals, but the bottom line is he's from New Albany, calls Columbus his hometown, lives and breathes Ohio State football and basketball. A lot of living with the football, a lot of not struggling to breathe with the basketball, and also a huge Columbus Blue Jackets fan. He's starting back in the field. He's used to that, but he came really close to winning this race back in 2021. Had a wheel come off, leaving the pits as he rolled out onto the track. One of the most dangerous things you've ever seen. Was not his fault, but they were in control of that race and were going to win it late in the race. So that's the heartbreak. He's still looking for Indianapolis 500 win number 1 to match his father. But we're going to have video with Bobby Rahal talking about this 500 and the significance of the 40 years anniversary of his victory over there in his, I think it was his 4th try, 82, 83, 84, 85, his 4th try. And then we're going to have video with Graham Rahal talking about the monkey on his back, or is there a monkey on his back, a weight on his back to fulfill what his dad did, et cetera, the pressure that comes with that, et cetera. And then Mike Shank talking about his 3 cars, how ready they are, how sweet it was to get that number 4 win for Helio. But now they're looking as a team for their number 2 win, which is pretty significant because he started that team from scratch a long time ago and worked its way into now considered one of the upper echelon teams in IndyCar. So we'll get that in a moment. But I wanted to ask you, man, if the negotiations or whatever you call it, the conversations going on in the Big Ten and the SEC, and perhaps between the Big Ten and the SEC were an auto race, you know what we'd be in right now?
What's that?
A big, huge rain delay.
Rain delay, yeah.
Because, oh my goodness, dude, it's getting tiresome with the SEC sticking by their guns of wanting to see no more than a 16-team playoff in the college football playoff, which, by the way, only went to 12 teams last year.
Yeah.
And it's 12 teams again this year. And the push by the Big Ten for some reason, I know the reason given, but in my mind, for some reason for a 24-team playoff, when, like I said, we've only been in a 12-team playoff for now going on 2 years. What's your take of all this, man? They both spoke out in the last week and a half about what they'd like to see happen. What's your take?
Well, it seems like, the Big Ten's drawn their line in the sand. Like it's going to be 24 teams for them. And now it's a matter of what the SEC is going to do. It sounds like the SEC is not even aligned on what they want to do. What Greg Sankey thinks that they want to do, and what coaches and ADs want to do. So it's basically up to what the
Up to what?
Up to what the SEC wants to do now. Like they had the final decision if they can push towards getting on board with the 2014 model. That's what it'll be. And if they want to stay at 16 teams ultimately, then it'll stay at 16 teams. Or, well, I guess it won't stay, but it'll move to 16 teams. I just, with this whole thing, I just don't get. I want somebody to tell me. And I understand like the things that are at play here, but if you just told me why 16 or even 24 teams makes more sense for college football, the sport, what makes it better, what makes the sport better out of those 2 teams, or out of those 2 ideas, those options. I don't understand like what makes it better for the viewing product, the fan experience, everything we love about college football. I just don't get that. So like I have a hard time really caring if it's 16 or 24, because at this point I think we're just so far. We've lost the plot of, what made college football special in the first place. I heard Josh Pate saying this on ESPN the other day, and it's true. And I think he was speaking, basically for what most college football fans would say. Like the thing that makes college football so special is the regular season. Like the regular season is the big ticket of college football. It's the best regular season in sports, in my opinion, and a lot of people would agree. Certainly, college football fans would agree.
Yeah.
What does that mean anymore if we're moving to 16 and then certainly to 24 teams? And then obviously the obvious question would be, well, how long is it even going to stay at 16 or 24 before it expands again?
Well, that's the big question. How many games you have to play to figure out who the top 16 or 24 are is more the question. If you're going to go that route, dude, this is like the gold rush,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
San Francisco 49ers in 49.
Sure.
The gold rush, or the gold rush in the Klondike, way back when. Somebody found gold, and then more people kind of moved out there and found more gold, and then everybody went out there when the gold was running out, trying to find even more gold. The point is, right now they're in everybody's running, everybody's loading up their wagons, running to the gold rush.
But who's everybody? What is the gold in this situation?
The gold is Petiti has explained, the reason you would go to 24 is because you've got to figure out a way to fill in the gap that will be left by getting rid of conference championship games. I think they're calling it a $200 million gap.
Right.
Well,
presumably the additional playoff games would make up
help.
For that.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Like I've said on TV and radio, and even on this podcast as early as earlier this week, or as late as earlier this week. Please don't call me to an elocution contest. elocution. I would take at least some thought that if the SEC, which is is leaning shoulder to shoulder with ESPN, that they're basically telling you without telling you that ESPN has kind of said it. I think someone from ESPN has the demand isn't there
right
for another 8 games.
Yeah,
for this playoff, which would be the first weekend would be the middle 8 versus the lower 8. The first day of the playoffs, the first couple of days, and they're basically telling you from the way they've tested the waters and held their wet finger to the wind, it's not there.
Right.
So you got the Big Ten sitting there going, they want to go to 24 because they want more teams to have a chance, number one, but number two, which means they want more of their teams to get paid or to be part of the largesse of getting paid. Obviously, they share what they make from the college football playoff, the shares that they get, but teams that take part get a certain amount of money for their expenses, et cetera. But the point is, they want to have a few more of their teams involved in the playoff, along with and SEC. Don't you too? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
Nothing is being done for the little man. By little man, I mean anybody outside the Power Four.
Right.
They'll still be lucky to get 2 teams in.
As of right now, there's just one automatic qualifier.
Exactly.
So
I said they'll be lucky to get 2 teams in. I should have said 2 like that instead of the way I said it. Yeah. But the bottom line is, it's all about the money. But you got to get rid of the conference championship games to do this.
Yeah.
Dude, you're talking about the 8 versus 8 league, the middle 8 versus the lower 8. Well, if you win that and go and win the national championship or play in the national championship game, that will be your 5th postseason game that season.
Yeah.
This is not the NFL.
No.
These are not NFL rosters where you have waiver wires and practice squads. Well, you got practice guys who practice, but you understand what I mean.
Right.
Right now you're limited, 105 guys.
Yep.
They all have to be on some form of scholarship, the way, whatever it is. But the point is, these rosters aren't set up for that. We've been lucky the first 2 years of the 12 team thing to see Ohio State and Indiana survive. Mm-hmm. Pretty healthy to go through the games they went through. Of course, Indiana only had to play 3, but they did have to win the Big Ten championship game. So Ohio State played in. But my point is, it's all about the money. So come right out and say that. They have pretty much come right out and say it. When you say, if we get rid of the conference championship games, we have to replace that hole. Yeah, right. That the conference championship games were paying we leagues, us leagues. But let's face it, if you're a team in the if you're a team in like any of the lesser leagues, you're still going to play your conference championship game, right? Because what else you got going?
Why wouldn't you? That's kind of pretty much what you're playing for.
But if you're that team in that league and you're the one outlier that gets an invitation to be in the 2014 playoff, are you going to blow off your league championship game to play in the 2014 playoff, or would that in fact decide that you're in it? And would you in fact have to play 6 games to win a national championship? You follow my drift?
Yeah, well, absolutely.
I know they don't give a damn about that. So, but the bottom line is, I don't curse on this podcast, and you don't curse anyway. So that's always a pleasure playing golf with you. But I go back to this. So, where do you think it's going to settle? Because right now they seem as far apart as they can get from the rhetoric.
I mean, I guess I don't have a great answer for that. I think ultimately, I can't imagine a scenario where it doesn't get to 24. So I guess
really.
I think that the deadline right now is in December. They have to figure out by December. I think it's part of ESPN's contractual thing with with the TV stuff.
Yeah.
So I think they have to figure out by December. I don't know if they get to that point this December, but I would imagine they've shown no hesitation to want to quickly turn around, settle on something, and quickly turn around 2 years later and change it again. So do I think that it gets to 24 by this December that the SEC makes that decision, like, hey, we're going to do this, we're aligned on this 24 teams? I doubt it. I feel like I doubt that because I just feel like I think while they're split in the SEC, I think the biggest powers that be are they're kind of driving the boat towards a 16 team model playoff model. So I don't think that they get there in December, but ultimately I think it's absolutely heading towards 24. And you said it right there, because again, ultimately more games is going to, more money, for everybody. And so that's ultimately going to drive everything. And this goes back to what I said. Nobody's asking for this. Nobody that loves college football is asking for this. Like the people who just truly love the sport for what it is and care about the health of the sport is asking for this. But
I'd rather see 16 than 12.
I was just about to ask
but I'd rather see 8 rather than 12.
Yeah. Well,
so my druthers.
I was when it went to 12, I was fully on board with just making it 16. And I always thought even when the playoffs started, I always thought 16 was the number anyways. Like I thought that was probably, if you're going to do this, make it 16 teams. It makes sense. Certainly when to move to 12, I thought that was inevitable, and I'm fine with that. Now that we're at 12, I'm fine with 16 teams. I have no interest in seeing games that, include teams outside your top 16. I do not care if Illinois Northwestern matters in late November. I don't care if that game, quote unquote, matters, because there's still technically a path to the end of the playoffs. So
I mean, even the polls way back in the day first they only did top 10, then they did top 20,
right,
and then they did top 25. So many people who were almost in the top 20 were griping about it.
Yeah.
So both major polls moved to that.
Right.
Whatever you call a major poll anymore, because they really don't count.
They don't matter anymore anyway.
Exactly. So. But it is pretty funny how you're trying to satisfy everybody, give everybody a participation trophy of some sort, maybe save some jobs, coaching jobs, et cetera. But Big Ten teams and stuff, if you get in, if you're number 23 and you get in, you're playing I guess you'd be playing number 10.
Yeah.
10 versus 23. And you lose that game. What is that proving to anybody?
Well, I think what you just said there, I would imagine there are plenty of coaches out there, ADs for that matter, who look at this and say, oh, this is kind of like a fail safe here for, my job. And, if I just have to be a top 24 team and make the playoffs. Now, obviously at certain places like Ohio State, it's not going to matter, making the playoffs. If there are 24 teams making the playoff, it's not going to matter that you just made the playoff. We know that's, not good enough at Ohio State, but for some places, if you can find a way to be a top 24 team, once every 3 or 4 years, like at Wisconsin or somewhere like that. Just like
becoming bowl eligible back in the day. Yeah, that was a big deal.
That's a very good point. So, a lot of coaches, I'm sure, say, hey, I think we could turn our program into something like that. And I'm going to feel really good about keeping my job.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, and that's okay if that's what it ends up being. I mean, if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. It's just the 24 just leaves me hanging, because I don't believe 8 teams should get a bye in any kind of tournament. Yeah. They used to be the way in major college basketball when it was 48-team field.
Yeah.
I remember covering the first couple of rounds in Evansville a long time ago when it was a 48-team field, Evansville, Indiana, and Indiana was playing whoever won a first-round game. You know what I mean? And so they were just sitting there. And, of course, they put it in Evansville. They put Indiana in Evansville so they get a hell of a crowd. That was an interesting place, by the way. I still remember that like 5 minutes ago, but I don't remember what I had for lunch. But is that really what we want to see? Because you know what? The NCAA finally went to a 64-team field.
Yeah.
And now they're going to 76.
Yeah. And that's a whole other story, which is, I consider that even a bigger affront to college sports fans than what we're seeing in college football right now.
Yeah, but they're doing it for the same reason. Because some of the big conference teams who claim they play a tougher schedule than teams that get in the 68-team field right now deserve their shot. Well, what if there's a first round, you get eliminated in that anyway,
I've heard other people say that, by moving to 24 teams, that these games, such as the Ohio State-Alabama series we have coming up, those games are going to be protected. More teams will be more willing to play those games and have those matchups because it won't be so, impactful on your playoff chances.
Making 24.
And while I agree with that, I say, who the hell cares about Ohio State and Alabama in September then if it doesn't really matter? That's what, again, it's the regular season of college football is why the sport's so special, because it does matter week to week, and to some it's been diminished to some degree, obviously, with the playoff in general and certainly the expansion of the playoff. But I get that the playoff was always going to happen and it needed to happen, so I understand that the playoff is still, the regular season is still special here. These are 24 teams, and I don't care what happens in September against Alabama or this Texas game that's coming up this year. If it were a 24-team playoff, lose the game, whatever.
Like the good old days. I mean, the wire services declared a champion, but basically was considered a mythical national champion because you didn't play everybody.
Right.
There was no way to really judge. I mean, before TV, sometimes, right about when radio was kicking in.
Yeah.
But, you're listening to whomever doing a game from Yankee Stadium, Notre Dame. No, that would have been – my point is you're listening to a game from far away and you're going, man, that team must be really good.
Yep.
Or you weren't even listening to teams. You just saw the score in the Sunday paper. Sure. Remember Sunday papers, man?
I used to be, it was just my Sunday. Well, I mean,
yeah.
We used to get up and watch it, watch Sports Center, and then read the Columbus Dispatch following College Football Saturday, and go down the list.
Then line your bird cage with it and move on out and play some football.
Right. Yeah.
The bottom line is it's still gonna. This is what's funny is it always still comes down to a vote now. The human is still involved.
Yeah.
In picking who's going to get to play for the national championship. Yeah. I saw it last year. There was one team that was left out, and that was Notre Dame. One team that deserved to be in it. One team was in it that didn't deserve it, in my opinion, was Alabama. I thought that was pretty clear to everybody except the committee that picked the teams.
Yeah.
You could make an argument for both of them. Miami definitely deserved to be in it.
Sure, yeah.
Because they beat Notre Dame. There was no doubt about that, and then we saw it come to fruition. And here's the thing. The thing I do like about the 24, I will say this, I will get either the 16 or the 24, is it does have a chance to reward a team that anybody can see is coming on in November.
Sure.
Has gotten much better than September. And lost, Ohio State, Texas, barring calamity, both of them should make the 12-team playoff, I think, this coming year. They're both going to be really good. Ohio State definitely is going to be really good. I'll throw that out there.
I think on paper right now, Texas probably is better than Ohio State.
But a 16-team field, they both make it, right?
Yeah.
With no doubt.
Yeah.
And in a 24-team field, are you kidding me? They're both sitting at home on that first weekend, maybe.
I would say, sorry.
Go ahead. I mean, what do you think about that, though? I mean, it does reward, remember Arizona when it won the national championship in basketball many, many years ago?
Oh, the Mike Bibby.
Yeah. I don't remember who all was
Mike
on that
Bibby
team. No. Bibby might have been on there.
He was.
It's funny. I covered them. I covered their regional game, and I think it was in Anaheim. I covered that region that year.
Oh, okay.
But the point was, that was a team that was like 4th or 5th place in the Pac-12 or Pac-10, whatever it was then. But they got better as the year went on and won it all. I mean, it's like so I can see that in football.
I think I would agree with you, but I think the 16-team playoff still accomplishes that. I don't think anybody
I would agree with that.
In the final 3 or 4 teams of a 2014 playoff is going to be one of those teams where you see hey, they've gotten a lot better to the point that, hey, they can make a serious run. I think you can pretty much tell by late October, early November, who the 10 to 12 teams, maybe 12. I don't know if you could get to 12. We could go back through the years and try to find 10 teams that we actually thought could win a national title in a given year. I don't know if you could find 10.
Yeah.
So I don't.
No, you can't.
No, and so that's why for the 24 team, I don't think that's going to happen. Now 16, if you get to the final 3 or 4 teams of a 16-team playoff, okay, well maybe you could make an argument maybe they can't win a national title, but they're certainly going to be dangerous to whoever they play for.
Yes. They're going to be dangerous. That's the word. And if somebody gets a major injury, right on down the line, things can happen. Calamity happens. But with 16, like I've always said, when you went from 2 to 4, there were 3 or 4 teams that thought they should have been at least number 4.
Sure.
When you go from 4 to 12,
of course.
I guess there's 12 teams that think they should be number 12. Based on this 24 thing.
Yeah.
So the bigger you make the field, the more you give argument to the guy
Agreed.
that isn't good enough.
Yeah.
But based on this criteria, hey, I am good enough. Yeah. And in the Big Ten, for example, when you're playing 9 conference games, you are one of the teams, so you're not playing 8 other teams from that league.
Yeah.
In your own league. So how's it to judge how good you are compared to that team? Except for people eyeballing you.
And that's always going to be the inequity of this whole thing is that ultimately there's going to be some semblance of the eye test that's going to matter in this thing. Yeah. I ask you, the 2014 playoff, would there be 4 lost teams making the 2014 playoff?
Well, I mean, there's you see all these people going, there better not be any 4. This is why these people talk. Better not be any 4 lost teams make the playoff. Well, if you're in the Big Ten and your losses are to let's say down the road, your losses are to Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and Oregon.
Yeah. Look at Ohio State's schedule this year.
But you beat USC, you beat Michigan State at home. You have credentials that show that, well, wait a minute, you got beat. Were those losses close?
Yeah, sure.
But then you beat some teams in tough situations. Yeah, you can make an argument. Just like in the SEC, they can make that argument. Yeah. Not the Lane Kiffin idea that, they got all these easy opponents in the Big Ten. That's how they're always fresh for the playoffs. And I'm just going, check the bowl records, Lane Kiffin. Check the bowl records the last 3 years.
Kirby Smart made
head-to-head.
Yeah. Kirby Smart made the same comment a week
I know, because they think it sounds smart, pardon the expression. But it's ridiculous to make that kind of comment when you've lost, when you haven't even played for a national championship in 3 straight seasons.
Because you lost head-to-head.
And then look at the head-to-head bowl records and playoff records of your conference versus the Big Ten. The idea is, supposedly going to wherever is tougher than going to wherever to play.
Yeah.
Well, you can say that, but you can't prove it.
No, not what. But there is one way that you can't defend.
I could say the same thing.
I
watched Alabama. I watched South Carolina take a lead on Alabama last year, and they couldn't hold it at home.
Right.
And that was a average Alabama football team.
Exactly. Well, and there's not a way you can prove it definitively, but there's a way that you can kind of get some kind of data on it, and that's by watching bowl games. Like we just talked about the head-to-heads and bowl games. Yeah. Certainly the top of the conferences, the playoff teams, and how those matchups have gone, and then how the rest of the conferences played those teams. Like there's ways you can get
I don't know if you've heard this though, but the SEC teams, if they don't make the playoff, they don't really care about the bowl game.
Yeah, well that's
their heart and soul is not into it.
Sure.
Their heart and soul is not into it.
Right. And then the teams that do make the playoff, they're just so diminished because of that schedule, that gauntlet that it's hard to.
Whew. That's why they want to take all their toys and go off and play. I say, go ahead. You know?
Please.
That'll be popular for a little while, but then it won't be. Yeah. But anyway, AYOs. You guys will be the AYOs of college football.
The AYOs.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the end of that. That was way too long on that, but that was the end of that. But I want to get to my IndyCar stuff. Let's get to this. I already kind of introduced what we're going to be listening to and talking about. But Bobby Rahal, 40 years ago, won the 1986 Indianapolis 500. A week delay. The first weekend was rained out. I mean, it was mudded out. It was crazy. The Snake Pit lived up to its reputation then, where almost anything you wanted to see, you could see in the Snake Pit. Turned out to be a big mud hole that year. That was my second year covering the Indy 500, and I went out and spent a lot of time, taking in the sights and sounds of the snake and the smells of the Snake Pit. But that's long gone. But the bottom line is, here's Bobby Rahal was asked pre-race press conference with his entire team, and you'll see him sitting in front of you, was asked about his reflections on that victory 40 years ago for his dying team owner, Jim Trueman of Truesports, which was HQ'd right in Hilliard up until about 8-10 years ago when Bobby moved the team to Brownsburg, Indiana. It's now in what's that little Zionsville, Indiana. Really great, nice, modern, state-of-the-art race shop over there. Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. But just hear Bobby driving for Truesports and owner Jim Trueman, and with Steve Horn as the head of operations, really, the way that little team rose up and won the biggest race, still the biggest race, most important race in auto racing. Here's some of his reflections. Let me interrupt. He was asked at the beginning of this question about the fact there's been a documentary made that kind of leads up to that victory and stuff, and what happened with Bobby and the team, but also Bobby after that. It's quite a dramatic story. I'm saying that because I was interviewed part of it, and I guess I'm in some of it, so that's interesting. So he was asked first about the ramifications of having a documentary made, and how much, I don't know if fun's the right word, but let's get to that.
Media. Thank you. About they wanted to do a documentary on me. Of course, I was surprised, flattered, not sure if there was enough material there to have a documentary, but it took a couple years. Scott Borchetta came in towards the end and was really helpful in getting things to move along, and of course I had a lot of respect for Adam. He did a great documentary on the Ford versus Ferrari battle at Le Mans in 66, 67, and then he did a great one on Willie T. Ribbs. He he's done about 4 or 5 documentaries, I believe, and they've all been really good. And so I thought, yeah, why not? And so, certainly made myself available to talk to them at times and all over the place. Some of it was done while I was on vacation in Europe, and it was just, but it was fun to recount, the days, the good days, the bad days from back in that era. And yeah, I saw it the other day for the first time, about 5 days after it was actually released, and I felt pretty good about it. I was surprised they could get that many people to say that many nice things about me. But now the full length, full length feature, I guess is a better way of putting it, is next Tuesday. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But it's pretty cool. Yeah. Got a lot of positive comments from people. So that was rewarding for sure.
Hell of a story and really well told.
But I was seeking, and I can't find it, and so that's the way it is. Technical difficulties sometimes, but the bottom line is, as Bobby has said many times, that victory in 1986 changed so many lives, the trajectory of so many lives, and put a crown on Jim Trueman at exactly the right time in his life when he needed a boost, so to speak.
That was your second one ever, too?
Huh?
That was your second Indy that you've ever covered?
The second Indy I covered, yeah. I mean, well, it's the second one I ever attended live. Yeah, let's put it that way. I've been watching it. The replays back in the day. You had to watch the replays.
Right.
Before that was the first race, by the way, televised live as it happened, because they wanted to keep the sanctity of the live crowd.
Yeah. Sure.
At Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and then of course you got the first 2 chances they had to run it. It got rained out, and they had to wait till the next weekend. They had to shift the Milwaukee race that was supposed to come up. Always followed the weekend after the Indianapolis 500 on the Milwaukee Mile. They had to move that. But anyway, the bottom line was just it just seemed like, I don't know. It just seemed like it was meant to be, man. I don't know how to explain it to you. And like I've told people, I was sitting in the pits. The last 20 laps of the race, I went down to the pits, and I was sitting there, and Jim Trueman was sitting against the pit wall. It was it was a pretty hot day. I don't know if it's hot as hell, but it felt like that.
Sure.
In the pits, when you're in the pits, you're facing the sun, because you're on the east side of the main straightaway, or the home straightaway. They're both exactly the same length, but he had a ice towel, water towel wrapped around his neck and stuff, and boy, they made it happen, and you could just see just the ecstasy, the relief, anything you want to say, because I remember Steve Horn, who was leading the team then, he walked back, and like I said, Jim and I were sitting right next to each other, and he goes, it's going to be that close on fuel, because they were about to run out of fuel. Yeah. And Jim said something to the effect of run him dry or something like that, and they did, and Bobby, it's really funny because they had a restart with 2 laps left, and Bobby was running second, and passed Kevin Cogan on the restart. Rick Mears, who was yet to be a 4-time winner. Matter of fact, he was only a 2-time winner at that point. Rick Mears was third, and Bobby just passed Kevin Cogan almost at the start-finish line, and going into turn 1, and pulled away. And like he has said many times, man, there could have been all kinds of lights and bells and whistles going off in the car. It didn't matter. Yet, it was the Indianapolis 500. Sure. You're not going to save fuel in that kind of deal. And yeah, it was a dramatic victory all the way it happened, because that late caution set up that last. Who knows if Bobby would have been able to finish running under green flag conditions the last 5-6 laps of the race. But they cleaned up the little 1-car incident pretty quickly and got them restarted. Like I said, with 2 laps to go.
The tension that builds over those last 20 laps down the pits like that, is it unlike anything you've ever?
It's palpable.
Yeah,
I mean, I've been in the pits, since then with their team and certain wins and stuff, and because I mean, these even if you win every race in a race season, what have you won? 20, 18, 20, 22 races. You know what I mean? They're rare. They're few and far between, and just all the focus and effort you put into the Indianapolis 500. Back then, everybody was running either a March or a Lola chassis, and most guys were running Cosworth engines, because the Chevy didn't really come around until the next year. But the point is, you had your engine builders, like Franz Weiss was the engine builder for the Truesports team. Steve Horn helped make that happen, and he was an extremely respected engine builder. Yeah. So Truesports was a small team, but they had great resources. And then it had as Jim Trueman said, the best driver in the league. If you ever watch Bobby drive, and Graham is just like this, Graham doesn't qualify as well as his dad did back then, but there are all kinds of reasons you can point to on that. But Graham is relentless in the race. He has great racecraft. He usually finishes much higher than he starts, whatever. Yeah. That's why I'm not counting him out on Sunday, because we'll get to that in a minute about his chance to win in, I think it was 2021, and a wheel came flying off the car after a pit stop as he headed into turn 2 on the warm-up lane, when he was just coming up to speed, and he would have won that race. He'll talk about that in a minute. But the bottom line is just so much has to come together, whether you're a big team or a little team, to win the NASCAR 500, and one of those major things is luck.
Yeah.
And luck comes in all forms. It comes in rain. In 2004, when Bobby is a team owner with Buddy Rice, Buddy Rice won that race. Basically, I think we were actually ended up in a tornado warning at the end of the race, because it was a big thunderstorm was coming that way and stuff, and they called it with I think it was 30 laps left or whatever it was, and so Bobby Rahal's team won it. Not him as a driver, but he won his first Indy 500 as an owner, and then he followed up in 2020 with Takuma Sato. By the way, you saw that big line of drivers and co-owners there, like Mike Lanigan, who's been a co-owner for many years now, joined the Rahal Letterman team. David Letterman, of course, he wasn't in that lineup, but you had Jay Fry sitting there, who used to run IndyCar until a couple of years ago, and Bobby and them hired him on basically to run their IndyCar team. There have been some really good improvements in that team since then, in my point. But you had Takuma Sato, you had Louis Foster sitting next to Bobby Rahal. You had Takuma Sato, who's won this race twice, should have won it 3 times. Wreck with 2 laps to go with Dario Franchitti, knocked him out when he, Takuma's motto is no attack, no chance, and he took a chance there with whatever it was, very few laps to left. It might have been the last lap, and spun and hit the wall on Dario Franchitti. But then he came back and he won it, and then he won it again. And the second win was for Bobby Rahal. It's kind of cool to think he could be going for his 3rd win, and he has a great chance. He has a great car. All three of these 4 guys have pretty good race cars. It's kind of hard. Mick Schumacher, the son of Michael Schumacher, the Formula One legend, he's also racing for the first year this year for Rahal Letterman Lanigan, and he's had a learning curve, of course. This will be his first race ever on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway oval, and very much looking forward to it. They just want him to keep his nose clean and see what happens with with 50 laps to go. But then Takuma Sato is a guy I've got my eye on, just because he's going to be going for it, man. Yeah. He's already a legend ×2 in Japan. He wants to make it ×3. But Graham, let's get to Graham, man. Go ahead. You want to ask me something else?
I was going to ask for the betting public out there, who I am a member of. What's the pick? What's the pick?
Oh, the pick right now is Alex Palou, a pole sitter who's won 4 races already this season, 3 or 4 races already this season. Won the pole in dramatic fashion last Sunday when he needed those 4 laps. He got them at the end. He had, they all had to run 3 times. The guys who ended up in the Fast 6 had to run their 3rd qualifying run, which is a 4-lap run in Indianapolis, unlike anywhere else. And he kind of came out of nowhere and won the pole. He's got a really good race car. You know who else has got a really good race car? We'll get to that in a moment. But it's Felix Rosenquist of the Meyer Shank Racing team, who had the fastest car on the lot last Sunday until the last run of the day, and ended up 4th on the starting grid. But let's get to Graham and what his thoughts are, because you'll hear me ask this opening question of him, because you're the son of a legend. Yeah, I mean, Bobby's a legend. Did he win as many races as Mario or AJ Ford or whomever? No, but he won 3 championships, 3 season championships, and has put together a pretty damn good race team. They've been hot and cold, good and bad some years and stuff, but they seem to be hitting things on the right spot right now. But let's just get to Graham and what being the son of a legend, you'll hear me ask him.
As Bruce alluded to, the documentary's coming out about your dad. I got to take part in some of that. But what I wanted to ask you is, Has that been both what your dad did at Indy? Has it been a little bit of a blessing, a little bit of a curse for you, his son, to follow, with the expectations, et cetera? And just kind of explain people if that's a burden at all, has been a burden at all through your career. But then number two, do you still remember that wheel coming off in that one Indy 500 that probably would have gotten any kind of knapsack off your back?
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, I don't think it's been much of a burden for me. What I look at is when you look at all the people that have competed in the Indy 500, very few have ever won it. I mean, it's just the reality. And so I don't sit here and be disappointed in myself that 19 tries in that I haven't won it or whatever. I mean, look, I've been close before. I've been closer than a lot of people have been, and it hasn't happened. It adds fuel to the fire each and every year to try to go and do it and get it off my back. But the reality is too that, this place, 500, I don't know what the ratio is, but probably 95 or more percent of the people that compete in it will never get the chance to sniff a win.
Yeah.
And so you can't look down upon yourself. And even the greatest of all time, Scott Dixon, has won one. You would think he's won 10 with the amount of things that he's been able to accomplish. And yet, even it's turned its head on him many times. So I certainly don't sit there and be disappointed in myself that it hasn't happened. And, yes, do I think about 2021? You got that damn right. I mean, that haunts me. People don't actually realize we had them completely covered that day.
Yeah.
Well, I needed one more pit stop to go to the end. They all needed two. It had been a very green race. It was going to continue to be a green race because people needed to save the fuel to get home. The pace of that race had been so slow that I was able to run a yellow mixture and keep up with the group for 95% of the laps I completed. Yeah. And I played it absolutely flawlessly. And we never had to say a word on the radio. We knew exactly what was going on. And unfortunately, things happen. And that's life. I mean, look, it's life. Am I disappointed in that year? For sure. It does haunt me a little bit because everything on that particular day had gone to plan. I mean, everything. It didn't, like I said, it didn't even need to be stated on the radio. We all knew, the whole team knew exactly what was going on. And, that happens. And unfortunately, sometimes I do sit and wonder, am I ever going to get that close again? I mean, the reality is you just don't know. And, that year felt like the year. But like I just said, this place chooses its winners, and sometimes they make complete sense and sometimes they don't. And that's just the way that it goes. So
hey, yeah.
Here we are to fight again.
One other quickie I want to follow up. When everything you know about your dad through winning the Indy 500, you've had to hear about or watch on videos and things like that, right? What do you think just stood out about your dad more than anything else? What strength he brought to the program, so to speak, with those 3 championships, winning a championship in his first year as an owner? What stood out about him in those years, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I think that, Dad was such a methodical thinker and just such a great racer, that he was able to have tremendous success. And the other thing I'd say is this, one of my dad's key highlights and key points is, and has been, to me, not only in racing, but in life, is one of my dad's greatest attributes, and one of the greatest attributes of a lot of successful people, is the ability to surround yourself with other people that are extremely smart and successful, and highlighting and finding the right people to put in the right places. And you look at what he did, early in his career at Rahal Hogan when they won their championship, obviously Adrian Newey, and then when you've got those people that you associate yourself and that you work with, you just don't let them go. And Tim, this as well as me. JP, Jimmy Prescott. Clay Filson. A lot of the people, Ricardo Nolt, who have been with our family for 40, 50
50
years.
years almost. Yeah.
50 years, a long time.
Yeah.
They become part of the family. And if and I look at my dad's business, if you look at the success of the car dealerships and hiring Ron Ferris and identifying Ron Ferris to be the guy, my dad has always been, superb at having that eye. And it's something that most people don't have a great eye for. But if you look at a lot of the most successful teams in racing, they all have that. Obviously, RP, with Tim for all those years. You look at Mike Hall, with Chip from the very beginning, and Barry Wanzer, and a lot of the great, guys that they've had around that program. And, you look at Andretti all those years with JF and many of the other people. I mean, all the successful teams and businesses have been able to have that. And that's where my dad was not only great on the racetrack, but great off. And, has led to a lot of his success in life, for sure.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. I was having technical difficulty running the board, man. We need our own board runner in here.
That's what you're supposed to have, right?
Yeah. But bottom line is, like Graham said, and here's the thing. I remember asking Tony Kanaan this over at Indy like many years ago. He had so many close calls where he could have won the Indianapolis 500 for the first time. And I finally asked him, this is before he won it. I said, do you ever feel like this place owes you something? And he laughed. He goes, you kidding me? It's the biggest race in the world. Yeah. He goes, it owes you nothing. You have to prove yourself worthy of being an Indianapolis 500 champion. And he finally went on and won it, But
it's like winning the Masters. Yeah.
When it's your time. Rick Mears had a great line one time. I've used this before many times, but because he was the second guy. Excuse me, he was the third guy to 4 victories in that race. The first was A.J. Foyt. The second was Al Unser Sr. And then Rick Mears in 1991, one of the most dramatic races I ever covered there. Michael Andretti passed him on the high side going into turn 1. No one had ever seen that before. The very next lap, I think it was the next lap, Mears came around and passed him on the outside because you weren't supposed to be able to pass on the outside. Right. And there was the 2 things you had to keep in mind when you race at Indy. Don't try to pass on the outside, and don't ever turn right. Even when you're spinning, keep turning left because you don't want to hit the concrete. Now it's a safer barrier, which, by the way, was developed at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, not in NASCAR. Like NASCAR likes to tell you anything good, kind of like the SEC, the way they like to brag about stuff.
Weird how that works out, right? There's something about that culture down there.
Yeah, something about that culture down there. But I digress. But the bottom line, he said, sometimes when you're going to work in the morning, you hit all green lights. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you hit all red lights. Yep. Green lights, boy, be thankful and take advantage. And that's exactly what it's like. And but now the field in this modern era, there are you could say almost every car, but there are 15 15 drivers that can win this race on Sunday. And I would not be surprised by the victory. Yeah. Some of them have to come from the middle of the field. Some of them have to come from the back. But their racecraft. I mean, Helio Castroneves. You'll hear me talk to Mike Shank about that in just a minute, about the racecraft he brings, the way he won several years ago to get that 4th win. He just kind of was there. I mean, he put himself in position, and in the end, he made the pass he needed to make and pulled away. Mm-hmm. He had been saving his car. He'd been saving all kinds of little moves and whatever for the right moment, and then he sprang it on people. That's how you win 4. Luck has to be involved too, like with him and Paul Tracy long ago and stuff. But the bottom line is, there are a lot of Graham has that racecraft. Does he have a fast enough car? We're going to find out, right? But right on down the line, Takuma Sato has proven it twice. He has 3 times really in my book, because I thought Darryl Franchitti cut him off, but that's a story for another day. But the bottom line is, there are a lot of guys that can do it. And if they get the brakes in the pits, they get the brakes in the yellows with the caution periods. There are quite a few guys that can win this race on Sunday. I'm not counting Catherine Legg in that group because I don't think she has the team to win the race. I think she's trying to do the double of running the Indianapolis 500 and then the World 600 NASCAR race, which starts at 6:15, 6:30 of that night. She's trying to become, I think, the first female to do that, but she doesn't have a team. I don't think she has the team at either place to get it done as far as being a contender. Yeah. But hey, who knows, right? Matter of fact, she may run the Indy 500 on Monday. So the way things are going. Yeah. But go ahead. I want to move to this Mike Shank interview, but you wanted to ask anything?
No.
Okay.
This is This is your passion.
All right, let's get to Mike Shank. Brought a team from nowhere into basically significance in IndyCar racing, and he started out as just being a sports car racer himself, or open wheel, smaller divisions, lower divisions, and willed his way up to the top not the top necessarily, but willed his way up into the ranks as a driver, and then said, team owners where it is.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. That's where my strength is. And of course, they have a really nice ultra modern race shop out in Pataskala, which I've been to many times. And if you ever get a chance to tour that place and they're offering it, go take advantage. But here we go. This is Mike Shank.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Shank, live from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where the Meyer Shank Racing team's going for its second Indianapolis 500 victory. I have that right, don't I, Mike?
That's right. That's right. You got that right.
Dude, real quick, in a nutshell, this has been an interesting month, an interesting qualifying day. Obviously, in the very final run, Felix's car, I don't know, did y'all miss there or whatever, but you're starting fourth. I mean, how did you absorb that because you were the fastest car all day, but you end up fourth? But how did you kind of absorb that and move on to the race, so to speak?
I didn't absorb very well. It was a disappointment. I still feel to this day we have the fastest car in the track here today, but on a qualifying deal anyways. And unfortunately, the car didn't pull like it had. It just didn't pull up like it had the last two runs. And and also, unfortunately, we don't have a complete explanation why. We'll dig into that after the fact here, a little post-mortem for next year to try to understand what happened. But he did a great job, especially if you go back and look at his very first run of that day. Man, he was so fast, and the car was trying to crash every turn. Yeah, and he just kept his foot in it and controlled the situation. And his whole team, his engineers, his chief mechanic, everybody did such a great job. So it was a pretty big letdown. And then the same thing, he had a fast car in the second round. The conditions changed a lot at 6:30 at night when we went, and just missed it a little bit. So it was very, the qualifying doesn't mean everything here, obviously. It's no problem to win where we're from, but I can tell you this place means a lot to all of us, and anything significant like a pole is important. Yeah,
a little trophy or trinket matters no matter what. It has its own spot in the thing. But like you just touched on, Mike, that's what I was going to get to. There's a good chance you could argue that Felix has the fastest car on the lot, as I like to say, which bodes well, because so many times this race, it's fallen to people occasionally, but so many times it comes down to, do you have the fastest horse in the race? You know what I mean? At the right moment and stuff. So going into this with three cars, Marcus, of course, and then of course Helio Castroneves going for an unprecedented fifth. Just what's your feel right now about the possibilities for Meyer Shank in this race?
Well, my feel is that all three of our cars are very good in race conditions. We had a little bit of practice on Monday, and we're getting ready to do carb day tomorrow. My feeling is it's really under control, that we can control. Yeah, I can tell you, Elio is extremely happy. He was giddy getting out of the car on Monday. He really felt like he had something to mix up with. So if that goes that way, then we just got to execute and let it fall where we fall. Last year we started fifth and Felix ran third for much of the beginning of the race, but we just struggled on restarts and picking the right lane for him specifically. Elio qualified 26th, I think, and he would have finished sixth, but we ran him out of gas, unfortunately, our own fault, and he ended up finishing 10th. But he now is starting, what is he starting, 14th?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
14th, I think. And so now, man, I'll tell you, if his car is just 80% there, he'll be swinging for it at the end, So I'm cautiously optimistic. A lot can go wrong, especially with three cars and all the people it take to run those three cars and the things that can go wrong. But I don't know, man. I feel pretty good.
Yeah, you should, because you have the capability. I texted you the other day, and I just told you I really think your team, this team, has come of age. I mean, I don't know if you feel that or not. You still don't have necessarily the victories to show for it yet, but but y'all are there. I mean, do you sense that too? I'm talking about just as a competitive organization, and then past that, I mean, about the I guess the depth of the organization. What am I looking at it wrong?
No, I definitely feel that, but I also definitely agree with you. We don't have the W's to show.
Yeah.
And so until we get those, then we're all just talking, right? So
Yeah.
I can tell you though, if you look at the last 3 races, so I'm talking about Long Beach, Indy Grand Prix, and now qualifying, which I consider a whole event here. You know, Felix Rosenqvist has been, in my mind, the one guy consistently bothering Palou
Yes.
for the last 3 events, the last 3 outings, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately, he locked a tire on at the beginning of the Grand Prix and kind of killed his day. But like, he's got the speed right now, I think, and he's really good here at the Speedway. So, you know, Felix would definitely be the underdog. He would be considered an underdog, which is not really true, but he would be. He's the one you would have to really watch, because if at lap 180 he's in the top 3,
yeah,
it's going to be a really interesting day. I'm more worried about, you know, Helio being in the top 3 in the last 20 laps, but you know, we'll see. Marcus Armstrong, my guy.
Right.
Also, you know, he's kind of new to this, and he's just now starting to get really comfortable, being comfortable or uncomfortable around this place. And so it'll be interesting to see. He's pretty confident too. So, you know, I think the boys and girls have prepped as much as we can, and we'll run a couple hours tomorrow and see where we're at in the pack running. And but if any indication from Monday is that we'll be in decent shape. You remember when you're watching pack practice tomorrow, the times don't necessarily reflect who is what, because we're all doing some different things. Some guys go out there and what I call fishing for the right toe.
Yeah.
They'll space themselves exactly perfect to get a monster toe.
Like wicked tuna. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And it just doesn't really mean anything. The important thing to watch on days like tomorrow do you have an ability to run right under the gearbox of the guy next to you and pull out and go forward? That's what you really need to watch for. If you see a person moving around a lot on the track, that's a really good thing.
Yeah. By the way, Marcus Armstrong, I think he's got some fangs to him, man. That's what I like. I mean, like you said, you know, he's learning to be comfortable with being uncomfortable at the Speedway and stuff. But there's an edge to him. Am I right about that?
Oh, there's definitely an edge. He's a quirky guy, but extremely, extremely dedicated to this.
Yeah.
I think he would tell you this place is probably the last place that he's just not all the way happy with, you know, just because it is so daunting and so difficult to be able to you got to be almost a wind whisperer. You got to understand what the aero does around you all the time. And it's not always predictable. You have enough wits about you to look up at the sock when you're going down the front straight at 230 to see if the wind shifted. You take a guy like Felix, who asks 4 questions before every run he did on whenever that was, Sunday, I guess. He wants to know the ambient temperature, the track temperature, the wind change, and what downforce level we're on the car. He just needs to know that sitting in the car. Yeah.
Yeah.
And once he knows that, then his brain can accept what's about ready to get to happen, you know?
Yeah. There's AI, and then there's Rosenqvist eye, I guess, is what you're saying.
He's a cool cat, man. He's a real cool cat around this place.
Hey, just the last couple of questions. I asked you a while ago, what's it like? I mean, do you feel like this team has come of age? I really think it's been that way for a little bit. I will say this, but from the standpoint, what does it do for you in your gut going into race day, like this coming race day, knowing like what we just talked about the possibility for all 3 of your guys, if things turn right, go right, et cetera? Because there's always luck involved. I don't give a damn who wins this thing.
Yeah.
But what is it like, Mike, to feel like you've got 3 horses for the race? If you follow my drift there, from an ownership standpoint, where you came from.
Yeah, I always try not to get too far out in front of my skis here. I really do, because I have a tendency to really get excited, and then, you know, our batting average in racing is low, right? Yeah. Like, it's really, really difficult to do well consistently. That's what makes Palou a freak of nature right now. You know? I know our cars are good enough to be in the top 5. It'll be up to the pilots after this. You know, that's all we can do. Get them in the top 5, and then they got to use their experience, knowledge, or bravery, all a mix of all of that to get it to the front. And also, and how we won in 21 at the time, Helio had a very fast car, but so did 3 other people, right?
Yeah.
So once you know you're good and you get up into the top 3 to 5, it becomes a chess match then. Yeah, when to go, when not to go, when to save fuel, let someone else lead. And there are tactics like that. Like if 2 or 3 of my guys are up in the front pack, you might ask one guy to come around the other just to break the wind for a while.
Yeah.
And not have to use as much fuel. So we'll think about all that. But I like the fact that we can think about little details like this and not just be hanging on. Usually you're just hanging on.
Hey, real quick, I wanted to ask you about the 40th anniversary of Bobby winning, because I'm trying to remember how old you would have been then. But I wanted to ask one quick thing about Helio. Did that surprise you, the run, Helio's, the last 15, 20 laps of Helio's run to this 4th victory a few years ago? Did it surprise you how cagey he had been, and when he decided to make that move, he was gone? I mean,
I didn't realize it till later. He was just setting Palou up.
Yeah.
And I just didn't realize that totally. I didn't see all that. He knew where he was strong, where he was weak. He knew not to be somewhere he shouldn't be with 2 laps to go, and then he knew he had to go. One thing that luck, like you said, luck. Well, just how so happens that they're coming up to the lead pack was lapping a group,
right?
And that lapped group actually pulled Helio away from Alex, right, with 2 laps to go, right?
Yeah,
That made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And if you also remember, Ryan Hunter-Reay was right in the middle as a lapped car and almost could have done it in force, but anyways, that it worked out, and actually Ryan ended up towing Helio through that last lap and a half, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. The only problem is you never know exactly what the guy in front of you is thinking. That's the problem.
Nobody wants or likes to go a lap down, but
right.
Man, you're talking about the Indianapolis 500, the last lap, 2 laps.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a free for all.
Oh yeah, man. Isn't it cool? In my opinion, that there are so many people that can win anymore. Last thing, 40 years ago, what were you doing? I'm trying to think.
I was graduating high school, and
you watched.
I remember it. For me, Jim Trueman was a really big figure in my life because of all the sponsoring he did of Ohio people, and the team that my dad drove, the team that my dad helped, which is how I got into this. Jim helped them financially. We had sleep cheap on our race cars, right?
Yes.
And also his son Colin was my age. I raced against at various levels, So and to this day, and this is the craziest thing in the world, my dad is buried probably 20 feet from Jim Trueman.
Wow, I did not know that.
It's St. Joseph's in south of Columbus, which is crazy that Jim Trueman and my dad ended up right next to each other. Wow. Eternally. So
wow.
But we admired the family a lot. I think when you look at a guy like that's what I really know. Obviously Bobby was just kind of a hero for us because he's a big time driver then. And but Jim was the real driving force, Jim Trueman, behind that thing.
Yep.
And he was such a huge figure in motorsports when I was coming up. He was kind of mythic.
Yes.
For me and a lot of people. And he helped so many people. And today I really see what that means to people when they get help like that. So just an interesting. I've told Bobby a million times that, that was just one of the coolest deals in the world for him and for Jim, who died 12 days or whatever, 16 days later.
For it to happen the way it did, does it even give you, a guy like you, chill bumps a little bit to think about everything the race was delayed 6 days. Right on down the line. And Jim's sitting there just willing himself to be at the race. Does it still give you chill bumps that it all came together like that, Mike?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I hadn't thought about that part for a while, but it's always in the back of my mind of how that went. When you see pictures of Jim on the front straight that day, that guy was just barely there, right?
Yeah.
And you can say easily that he went out the only way he knew how,
Yeah, I sat next to him in the pits there the last 10 or 12 laps. It was like what a moment in my life too, just to witness that. Hey, last question. Logistically, speaking of rainouts, Sunday doesn't look good as you and I record this.
Yeah.
Do you literally get much sleep between now and race day? From the standpoint of you're the big banana, so to speak, of the place. You always have to have logistics in your brain, I would think, 24/7 for an event like this, especially. all the stuff the entertaining y'all are going to do on Sunday, but is it going to rain out? Is it going to be pushed to Monday? How do you keep from going mad, I guess, during a week like this?
It's a little bit tough. Starting tonight, actually, we have dinners tonight, tomorrow night, Saturday night with all the sponsors and partners, and we keep an eye on the weather. We come up with plan A, B, and C, and try to remember. Everyone's got to remember we also need to be in Detroit by Thursday with this whole traffic check. So our Detroit cars are being prepped as we speak right now.
Wow.
We have different sponsors on them for Detroit, and so. It's a big. I'm very fortunate. I have a guy named Adam Rovizini who operationally is the leader, and a couple other kind of management type people that really, really make this thing sing. Whether I'm sitting in the motorhome here talking to you, things are still going in the right direction over there. It's taken us a long time to evolve to where, I don't need to be, and nor do they want me over their shoulder all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate for that. But yes, it is. I love this time. We love, we've been here. My wife and I've been here for 3 weeks now, almost by the end of this. It's staying in the motorhome. I really like doing that. We'll be ready to get out of the motorhome here on Sunday. That's for sure.
There you go motorhome to the Victory Circle and then on to Detroit. That's a motto.
That'd be great.
That sounds like a credo.
That would be the best. That would be the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Shank. Mike Shank, thank you once again for joining me, my man.
Thanks, guys. See you.
Good luck.
Yeah, bottom line is one of my favorite people. I mean, I've been around him for a long time, and he's always been giving of his time, man. And he and Bobby both, I mean, back when Bobby, with Jim Trueman and stuff, like I've told people, the reason I really like Bobby Rahal is he let me behind the curtain, man. Most sports writers never get a chance to go behind the curtain. He and Scott, Steve Horn, and then Scott Rimke later on with the Rahal Letterman team, just great people. They wanted publicity, but they also enjoyed, it seemed to me they enjoyed my company. Who knows, right? But always enjoyed Bobby's company because he's over the top intelligent. And same thing with Mike Shank. And you give it up to a guy like Mike Shank, who is, like I said, he and his wife have built a race team almost out of nothing. I mean, really, from scratch, and got it done. And Jim Trueman, one more shout out. Jim Trueman was one of the great benefactors I ever met. I mean, he wasn't just into racing, but he was big time into racing. He bought Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course and turned it into what most people call their backyard. He turned it into a place you enjoyed going to, as opposed to mud hole and here and mud hole there and all that kind of stuff I'm talking about for the fans, etc. It was like if it needed anything, like his backyard needed a new shrub, if his new racetrack that he newly purchased needed a new bathroom facilities, they got him. I mean, he had to build his own sewer treatment plant to satisfy, the county, so to speak. But the bottom line is, but he was a benefactor to so many people, not just race car drivers like Willie T. Ribbs and many others, but he was a benefactor to other sports people on the edge of big time sports, like bobsled team, the U.S. bobsled team. He was a benefactor with them for a couple of years, and racquetball guy who was a really good racquetball player. He sponsored him going to Japan a couple of times. Even gave him a little bit of extra money to spend on the side if he needed to. Matter of fact, gave him directions to places, but I won't get into that. But the bottom line is Jim Trueman was larger than life. And boy, when that team lost him 11 days after Bobby Rahal won the Indy 500, when that team lost him, heck, when Columbus lost him, man, they lost a hell of a hub. Yeah. A hub is a guy that things go out from, the spokes go out from, because he got the Columbus 500. He helped envision that Columbus Ford 500 or Columbus Ford Dealers 500, whatever it was called at the beginning. And he saw one of them, died before the second one. I think it went on 2 or 3 more years, and finally died. It was a race running downtown Columbus.
Really?
For the biggest race was the prototypes of IMSA, the IMSA prototypes, and it was really cool. But he envisioned that, made it happen and stuff. So I'll never forget him giving me a ride through the streets of Columbus on what was going to be the race course, except it was just after noon on a work day.
So it wasn't quite the same.
Well, no, he was beeping his horn as we were making turns. And people were getting out of the way. Yeah. That wasn't so cool, but it was cool to be in the car at the time. Sure. But anyway, your pick for the Indianapolis 500 before we go and let people enjoy the rest of their holiday.
I'm gonna go with Takuma Sato. It will be number 3 for him.
Yeah, Takuma Sato.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with him. So,
No attack, no chance. I've got a feeling, for whatever reason, I've had it for a couple of weeks now. Felix Rosenquist may have the fastest car on the lot when it comes push to shove on Sunday. Alex Palou is going to be very difficult to beat, barring any kind of calamities, and those happen. But I've got a feeling for it's funny. I've got a feeling for Meyer Shank Racing that Helio Castroneves is going to deliver not just their second Indianapolis 500 win, but their second IndyCar win. Could be a big deal. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll see who you picked. We'll see who you liked, and maybe for the next 20 shows, we'll also talk about 16 or 24, because that's probably as long as it's going to take, right?
Yeah.
25, 30 shows. Yeah, but for double decker, double danger, double down with Double D over here, Dillon Davis. I'm Tim May. We'll see you next time.